All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Big thank you to everyone out there, as always, for watching, for listening, for following, for subscribing. I appreciate you guys very, very much. Today's episode is presented by Sunny Reds, 1841 Abbott Road in Lackawanna, just minutes down the road from Highmark Stadium, one of the absolute best places to go in all of Western New York, not just for wings. They're on my Mount Rushmore of wings, but even besides that, brick oven pizza, burgers, fish fries, across the board. The food there is incredible. The vibes are great. The beers are great. It is a great place to go, whether it's date night, whether you're meeting up with some of your friends for a night out. Just an awesome place to be, a big supporter of this show. So please, 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 if you're around that area, make sure you get out and support Sunny Reds. Tell them that Talking Buffalo sent you. All right, this is our weekly following a Bills Sunday game. My biggest Buffalo Bills takeaways this week, of course, from week 15, a statement win for the Buffalo Bills, a signature win, so to speak, over the Detroit Lions on Sunday, 48-42, pretty much across the board. Every major and minor media outlet out there had the Detroit Lions number one on their power ranking polls. A big win. No way around it for the Buffalo Bills. I got a lot of takeaways. I watched the game now. I watched it back, and I've actually watched the majority of it a second time. Got some PFF grades, all that stuff in, and I kind of want to formulate some thoughts. I've said this before, this is probably my favorite, selfishly, my favorite show of the week. We do a live post-game show shortly after the game. I do that with Joe from Queens. That's always fun. It's animated, often emotional, but that's kind of like in the moment. You really, you watch the game, and in my case, I'm kind of getting ready for the post-game show already. I'm frantically trying to look up some stats, jot down some notes, and bam, we're off and running. This show, I get an opportunity to sleep on the game. I get up very early on Monday morning, rewatch the game, get to some all 22 stuff. Usually I get some PFF grades, and I kind of really formulate some more calculated and measured opinions on this game. Sometimes it confirms what I saw with the naked eye on Sunday, and other times I see something on film and I'm like, wow, this guy played a lot better than I thought, or wow, this guy did not play as good as I thought, or this worked and this didn't. You get what I'm saying here, et cetera, et cetera. Um, let me say this too. I can only imagine how entertaining this game was and stress-free, like around the league for fans who didn't have a horse in this race. Like this game, these two teams, these two offenses, a 12-1 team against a 10-3 team in Detroit, two of the top 3 to 4 teams in the NFL. I think everybody would agree to that coming into the game. That's just fun. This delivered on every level. If you like offense, if you like points, if you like explosive plays, if you like game-breaking type impactful players, and you don't have an emotional horse in this race where you're not living or dying with every drive or every play like Bills fans or Lions fans were on Sunday, I can only imagine how much fun this must have been to watch. Just an incredibly entertaining football game, first and foremost. And I could see it again. I could definitely see this game happening again this season. I bet many people feel that way as well. Entertaining, like I said. I also feel like if you're not if you are, let me walk that back a little bit. If you're a Chiefs fan, if you're an Eagles fan, whatever these teams are going to be in the playoffs, Ravens fan, Steelers, you name it. If your team can't get to the Super Bowl, I'd be willing to bet that this is the matchup that the majority of people want to watch again. Bills Lions in the Super Bowl would be the ultimate. I don't know how it would do ratings wise, but I can tell you from an entertainment aspect, from a, hey, finally win the big one, I'm pulling for you guys kind of aspect. Buffalo and Detroit, very similar in that regards. This is the game I think that everybody is going to want to see. Before getting into any, specific takeaways about this game and Bills players, I will say, it's going to be exponentially harder now for Detroit to get to the Super Bowl. Not because they lost to the Buffalo Bills. There is certainly no shame in losing to Josh Allen and the Bills. But the injuries now for Detroit are really, and I mean really, starting to rear its ugly head. They're already without Hutchinson for the rest of the season, one of the best young defensive pass rushers in the entire NFL. They've been without him. They've had other key injuries, but things got a hell of a lot worse for Detroit. I'm sure Detroit media, content creators, fans today are sitting back and saying, I don't give a shit that we lost to the Bills. I do give a shit about the injuries that we suffered because significant. Aleem McNeil, a stud defensive tackle, tore his ACL, confirmed on Monday he is done for the season. A really good corner, Carlton Davis III, suffered a broken jaw in this game. He's going to be out indefinitely, possibly the rest of the season. Just as we're getting ready to record, which, by the way, I am recording this relatively early on Monday afternoon. Kind of got a time frame. I was hoping to be able to wait to the evening where Sean McDermott would speak and maybe we get a little bit of insight on some potential injuries from the Bills side. But anyway, David Montgomery also has an MCL injury on his knee, and he's going to be out indefinitely. So the road to the Super Bowl for the Detroit Lions just got a lot tougher. But I'm not here to talk about their fortunes today. It's almost hard to articulate how good I feel right now about the Buffalo Bills after what we've been seeing when you measure that, especially to the expectations that we had for this team, most of us anyway, over the summer. Like in your wildest dreams, my wildest dreams as well, who thought the Buffalo Bills offense would be this good? I mean, this team has a chance to end up being the best offense in the history of the franchise. And you go back to the summer, no Gabe Davis, no Stephon Diggs, no Mitch Morse at center, your anchor there. Move in Connor McGovern over from center to guard, and you look at the receivers, and it was just so much unproven there. So much unproven. Keon Coleman, a rookie, hadn't played a snap in the NFL. You had Chase Claypool in the mix. You had MVS in the mix. It just felt like a very uninspiring group, to be completely honest with you. Matt Collins comes over from Atlanta. It's like, all right, well, he's a special teams guy. He can play a little bit here and there. He had some success with the Raiders a few years ago. But I'm like, yeah, what do you really expect with this football team? They're going to be competitive. We expected them to be competitive. We expected them to be good. Most people did not pick them to win the division, but it was very reasonable to say, hey, I had the Bills winning the division. They're still the best team in the AFC East. That was reasonable. But who in the hell could have possibly thought that they'd be doing what they're doing? And what they are doing, quite frankly, is just rolling over team after team after team. They don't let up against bad teams, and they are beating up on good defenses, good football teams. It just doesn't matter. They tied an NFL record this week, 30 points now, 8 consecutive games. That's wild. They've scored 30 or more points, folks, in 8 straight games. They have tied an NFL record. Crazy. This game specifically, 48 points they put up, 559 yards, 28 first downs, 8.2 yards per play, not a single sack, not a single turnover. I didn't look it up. I'm kind of thinking about this on the fly. I'm not even sure. I think maybe they had one negative play this entire game. It's bananas to me. It really truly is. And right now, the Buffalo Bills suddenly, don't look now, but the Buffalo Bills are now the betting favorites to win the Super Bowl. Let me say that again. The Buffalo Bills, as we get into week 16 here, folks, the Buffalo Bills are now the betting favorites to win the Super Bowl. That's not unprecedented during this regime, this era of Bills football. The Bills have been the betting favorites, not this year, but the last couple of years over the summer into the season. But this late in the season, the Bills are the betting favorites right now on FanDuel, DraftKings to win the Super Bowl. They're at plus 420. Detroit's at plus 450. That might drop a little bit with some of these injuries that are being revealed here on Monday. But anyway, they're 450. Philly's at 5-1. KC is at 6-1. And then Baltimore is there at 8-1. But the Bills are 420 right now to win the Super Bowl. And as far as Josh Allen winning the MVP, it's a fun thing to do. We started way too early. We carry it throughout the season. Well, I can tell you right now, 3 weeks left. Don't really need to talk about that anymore. No more is Josh Allen going to win MVP discussion, folks, because the answer is yes. The MVP race, for all intents and purposes, if it wasn't already over, it is most definitely over after this game, which is kind of wild because Lamar Jackson went off on Sunday and had 5 touchdown passes, no interceptions. His stats have been out of this world. But, he did it against the Giants, and he's had a couple really bad games. His team had a couple really bad games at home against really shitty opponents. Josh Allen is just doing it week after week after week against good teams, bad teams. Doesn't matter. He's doing it all in a variety of ways. And again, he is minus 900 right now to win MVP. That is astounding odds. So short of something absurd happening, Josh Allen is your 2024 MVP. We'll get into Josh stuff here in a few minutes. In terms of specific takeaways to this game, I want to tip my cap right now to Sean McDermott. This may have been, in my opinion, maybe you disagree, but this may have been the most impressive regular season win of the Sean McDermott era. Now, the score, 48-42, makes this game sound really close. But make no mistake about it, the Bills were all over Detroit and out in front, 14-0 from the jump. The reality is this. The Buffalo Bills came into the house of the best team in the NFL. And they did it on their home field. And we know how well Bills Mafia travels. We see it a handful of times every year. The Bills go on the road, and basically the fans just take that stadium over. And the Bills fans were represented pretty well in Detroit, so don't get me wrong. But there's a handful of stadiums around the league where that fan base is loyal and loud to the home team. It feels like a true road game for the Bills. Kansas City, Arrowhead, that is certainly one of them. And another one is Ford Field in Detroit. But it didn't matter. The Bills walked into the best team in their house, and they dropped the hammer on them. And they did it in a way that Detroit typically does to their opponents. Running the ball, throwing the ball, a perfect balance. And Sean McDermott this entire week, Sunday was the culmination, but for me, it was the practice, the preparation leading up to this game. Sean McDermott last Monday more or less kind of called out the defensive line. That they need to be physical and they need to play better. They need to bring it, which they did not do against the Rams. And they really responded big time. And I'm sure some people are sitting there saying, what? Dude, Detroit scored 42 points. What are you talking about, man? That's just stupid talk. But trust me, they responded. This defensive line specifically played well. Jared Goff threw the ball 59 times. You're going to have success, especially when you're as good as he is, and this offense is as good as they are. But early in the game, the first 2 series on defense, the Bills, again, forced 2 punts, and they gave the offense an opportunity to build a 2-touchdown lead, which they did. But it's not even just that. Sean was aggressive on a 4th down call when he needed to be earlier in the game, which led to a touchdown. He didn't punt. They converted. He did punt the one time that they needed to punt, and that worked out. And more than anything else, again, this was a team that came to a very tough place to play, and they were ready. One of the biggest problems with the Bills earlier in the season was they would sleepwalk through the first quarter, sometimes the first half, come in at halftime, make some adjustments, and get their shit together. That wasn't the case this week whatsoever. They were ready to play from the opening kick, quite literally. So if we're going to blast Sean McDermott, if I'm going to blast Sean McDermott for some of these awful late game mismanagements that he's been guilty of a handful of times this season, which has been deserved, by the way. I also think he deserves a lot of praise for a day like this. Again, right, it's right there for me, alongside maybe 2021 when they beat Kansas City on Sunday Night Football. This was Sean's best regular season win. And one more thing before I get to Josh Allen, I want to take a break after this and then get to Josh. But I thought Joe Brady was awesome too. Like Joe Brady to me took advantage of a base Detroit defense, and he just kept them on their toes the entire game. I go back to my pregame, I'm sorry, my pregame preview. I'll get the word out of my mouth. Preview that I did with Joe Yurden on Saturday. We had three Bills keys to victories and the three bold predictions that I do every week. On yesterday's show, I made fun of myself. I'll do it again here real quick. Most of my bold predictions were fucking terrible. Okay. I mean, really, really bad. I had Montgomery and Gibbs each going for over 100 yards rushing. And then I also had the final score going under 54 and a half. Of course, the final score went to 90, and neither Gibbs nor Montgomery even sniffed 50 yards each, let alone 100. So I was way off on that. But there was one thing I was right about. My biggest Bills key to victory, my first one when I did three of them, was having the offense keeping the Detroit defense guessing on their toes. And that is quite literally what the Bills and Joe Brady did this game. I thought the game plan for Joe Brady was outstanding. He saw something on film this week where he realized that the running backs were going to play a major, major role as pass catchers in this game. And holy shit, man, boy, oh boy, did they ever respond, especially Ty Johnson. Again, that's Joe Brady figuring out Ty Johnson, who played early in that first drive. He was huge right off the bat. That's Joe Brady knowing, seeing a matchup that favored the Bills that he was going to exploit. For this game, the Bills running backs, all three of them contributing. 31 touches, 285 yards, 3 touchdowns. Insanity. This was the first time that a team had a 100-yard rusher, because James Cook had 100 yards, and Ty Johnson had over 100 yards receiving. It's the first time a team had a 100-yard rusher and receiver as a running back duo since Pierre Thomas and Darren Sproles did it with New Orleans all the way back in 2012. So we're talking 12 years, man. Running backs were huge. Tight ends were big too. 6 catches in this game for 95 yards. Wheel routes galore, rail routes, all kinds of stuff going on that Joe Brady kind of schemed up. Misdirections from bootlegs that had Detroit fooled a lot. And they did this without Amari Cooper quite literally doing anything. And I bet you he doesn't care either. I bet you Amari Cooper truly does not care that he did not have a target or a catch in this football game. I bet you he doesn't give a shit. He don't care. Keon Coleman only had 1 catch. Big one, but only 1 catch. Matt Collins, no catches. Won the game plan. Was not the game plan for this game. Joe Brady was just cooking. I know people use that word all the time, cooking. Well, this one fits here because Joe Brady was straight up cooking. Again, 48 points, 559 yards, 28 first downs, 8.2 yards per carry, not a single sack, not a single turnover. Other than, and I will call him out for this, that horrible 3rd and 1 goal line call where the Bills do a pass, which, in fairness, if Deion Dawkins doesn't have a false start, it's a touchdown. And we're not even having a conversation about this, but I don't give a shit. Things could go wrong when you're spread out wide and you throw the football. Get in there, tush push. They can't stop that shit. You got 2 cracks at it. 3rd and 1, and you kind of get cute. I hate that. Coordinators are all guilty of it, including Joe Brady. They get a little too damn artsy-fartsy. Hated that shit, man. But that aside, I loved what we saw from Joe Brady. Balance, mixing it up, keeping them confused, exploiting matchups. The Bills never got conservative. They never got predictable, even though they had a 2-score or even a 3-score lead for a lot of this game. It wasn't just, hey, let's line up and have James Cook and Ray Davis just smash the ball up the middle of the field, the middle of the line, 2-3 times per drive and see what happens. They kept their foot on the gas offensively, and I thought that was a huge, huge key for the Bills. So very good job by Joe Brady. Anyway, quick break, come back. Going to get to Josh Allen, a couple other things, and get you out of here. All right, folks, I'm back here. We're talking my biggest Buffalo Bills takeaways from Week 15, a 48-42 victory over the Detroit Lions. Man, it was such a fun football game to watch, and the Bills are sitting pretty. 11-3 right now, still in the mix for a number one seed and close, not there yet, but close to being locked into no worse than the number two. All right, look, Josh Allen. I don't intentionally try to be a hot take machine. Like, that's not my goal to just sit there and tweet out or come on this show and just sound off with hot take after hot take after hot take. That shit gets pretty old to me. I like to try to be a little bit more than that, a little bit more measured and calculated and objective. I can't help myself here. I can't help myself. This may be the best month by a quarterback consecutively over the course of a month that I personally have ever seen in my life, ever. Josh Allen is just straight up an unstoppable force right now. It's wild. Right now, Josh Allen is Thanos with all the stones. That hand is full. He's got all of the stones right now. He's just unstoppable. These last 4 games against 4 good teams, by the way, Kansas City, Frisco, the Rams, Detroit, 2 on the road, the 2-time defending Super Bowl champion, the team that was in the Super Bowl just a year ago as well. Combined 39-17 record between those 4 teams. All of them were playoff teams last year. 3 of them are probably going to be in the playoffs this year. 2 for sure, probably a third, maybe even an outside chance anyway at a fourth, but not likely. Still, Josh Allen has carved them apart, all of them. Last 4 games, Josh Allen, 1,114 passing yards, 225 rushing yards, 16 total touchdowns, 1 interception. No fumbles, no lost fumbles, 16 touchdowns, 1 interception. It is absolutely absurd. And in terms of this game specifically, I mean, what can I say about Josh Allen that everyone else isn't already saying? Just another out of his mind football game. 23-34, 362 yards, a season high, 4 total touchdowns. Should have been 5. You do a touchdown pass to Dalton Kincaid, which probably would have been the icing on the cake of the highlight MVP video for the season. But David Edwards blew it with a holding call, which, to be honest with you, was kind of ticky-tacky, and Josh was already past him. I don't want to get into that bullshit. But anyway, just unbelievable. Like, that touch throw early in the game to Ty Johnson on the first drive, just an incredible throw. That improvised rollout, that bomb to Keon Coleman, just several times, buying time, rolling out of the pocket, making throws. Josh Allen had 171 yards passing out of the pocket in this game, which is the most that any quarterback around the league has had in literally 3 years. 2021, Russ Wilson is the last time somebody threw for more yards out of the pocket than what we saw from Josh this game. Running the ball, the effectiveness of when he takes off, the scrambles, just crazy. And he's getting down and sliding. I mean, he did get hit. It should have been a penalty on one of them. It was a bullshit no call. But he's got all the physical skills that we've been seeing for years now. The difference is just mentally, it's all there now. It really is. Josh Allen is the first player in NFL history right now with 35 or more combined touchdowns in 4 straight years. And again, he's still got 3 games left. 3 games left. Again, he just mentally, it's there. He is making so many less dumb throws, terrible decisions, turnover-worthy plays. There was one pass in this entire game that I can remember, and especially after watching it back, where I'm like, "Whoo, got away with what could have been a pick there. Got away with it." He's just playing smart. He has put it all together this season, and I truly think, and I'm not trying to be controversial, I truly think that Stefon Diggs being gone has been the catalyst for Josh Allen reaching this unprecedented level of football that he's playing this season. And that is not me hating on Stefon Diggs. Stefon Diggs was a great football player for the Buffalo Bills. Stefon Diggs was a great trade for Brandon Beane back in 2020. A great addition. Stefon Diggs was the right player for Josh Allen at the right time. He did help make Josh Allen what he is today. So this is not, hey, let's bash Stefon Diggs. That's not what I'm doing at all. Stefon Diggs was an incredibly important player to the development of Josh Allen. And Stefon Diggs is one of the all-time, love him or hate him, one of the all-time great Buffalo Bills receivers. What he did in 4 years with this team is unbelievable. But him leaving, him being gone, whether he completely forced his way out or whether the Bills were ready to move on from him, regardless, who knows? We'll never know fully. But him being gone has just changed the way this offense is. It's undeniable that in the past, you would be trying to find ways to force Stefon Diggs the ball. He had to be a part of the game plan, or he probably was not going to be very happy about it afterwards. To a fault. But right now, it doesn't matter. Every single game, there is somebody. Joe Marino put out a stat that over these 8 times where the Bills have scored at least 30 points, I think 6 different guys or 5 different guys have led this team in receiving yards. It's just insane. The everybody eats mantra is true. It's legit. And I just don't think you have that when you have that alpha number one like Stefon Diggs is. I think Amari Cooper is a number one receiver in terms of talent, but he don't need to get the ball every week. You don't need to feed him. You don't need to force 7, 8 targets to him. And never has that been more on display than this football game where Josh Allen throws for 362 yards, counts for 4 touchdowns, and you put up 48 on the Detroit Lions, who came into this game 12-1, and you do it on the road. Case closed. Case closed. I want to hit on James Cook, too, real quick, because I think this guy's a star football player. He really has become a star. He has 828 yards rushing this season, which is, he's on pace for just literally over 1,000 yards. That ain't nothing special. Nothing special at all. But he is finding the end zone right now. He got 13 rushing touchdowns this season. 13. He had 2 last year. He had 2 his rookie year. And he's got 13 this year. The way he's running the football is just different, man. And he's got 4.8 yards per carry, too. Okay. He's been well-rounded. And here's another thing. He has not fumbled once this season. So he's reliable. No fumbles this year. Not a huge factor in the passing game. Or whatever. He's got 1 drop there. But Ty Johnson kind of shines in that role. Don't need him to be a huge factor in the passing game. You like him to. He's certainly got the ability to. But it hasn't really been much of that this year. But who gives a shit? He is running with vision. He's running with patience. He is making people miss. He is running through tackles, which I just don't think he was doing a lot of last year. He's more decisive. Once he commits to where he's going with that football, he is way more decisive this year than he's ever been. What his future holds, I don't know. He's still got another year. Let's worry about that shit about 12 months from now. I know a lot of people were like, well, you got all these other guys that you got to resign. You're not going to give a running back a big second contract. Maybe you're right. But you know what? This football team is much, much better when James Cook is out there. Now, I watched the game with my son on Sunday, and he's like, well, this is a Ty Johnson game. I was like, oh, absolutely. But then, you close your eyes, you open them, and guess what? James Cook has 100 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. So this was a James Cook game just as well. The defense. We'll get there. I kind of want to just wrap up here with a few more. I thought the defense was good enough. As weird as that sounds, it's the weirdest feeling to see a defense give up 42 points and give up a gazillion yards passing. But yet, you come away feeling like they played good enough. See, I look at it as you have an offense that's going to put up points, the Bills I'm talking about here. Your job's just to get a few stops. You got to get a couple extra possessions for the offense. That's the gig. That's the job. You ain't never going to be a complete shutdown defense, not against teams that are as talented and good as the Kansas City Chiefs, as the Detroit Lions. So I look at it this way with the Bills. I see this defense on Sunday as a unit that forced 2 punts on Detroit's first 2 drives, which started the football game. The Bills scored 2 touchdowns. So they gave the Bills a chance to go up 14-0, which they did. And then for good measure, they also had a turnover. Christian Benford, who also had a sack in this game, an awesome, I don't want to call it a punch out, but he kind of pushed it out with his fingers from Aaron St. Brown, and Matt Milano was there to get the loose football. So they had 2 stops in the first quarter, and they also had, I believe in the third quarter, a turnover. Realistically, if you're playing the Lions and I'm going to trust my offense to score a lot, it's almost as good as I could ever expect from you. And talk about stopping the running game. Again, Joe Brady was committed to exploiting matchups. I think Bobby Babich and Sean McDermott were a lot more committed to not letting Detroit get off running the ball early and being effective and making life miserable for their running game, which they did. The Detroit Lions running backs, great running backs, Montgomery and Gibbs, 13 carries for 35 yards in this game, under 3 yards per carry. In my wildest dreams, if you would have told me a running back is going to have 100 yards rushing and his teammate is going to have, a running back teammate is going to have 100 yards receiving, 2 different guys, I would have been like, oh, well, shit, man. Montgomery ran for 100 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs caught 100 yards receiving. Well, no, it was the Bills. James Cook running for 105 yards. Cy Johnson having 114 yards receiving. The Bills defense did a really, really good job on Gibbs and especially Montgomery, who did leave with an injury. That aside, they gave up a ton of points, ton of yards, but they did your job early. And let's not forget that they were shorthanded too, okay? 3/4 of this secondary was out for this game. And I know I'm not the only one who was sitting there, at 2:55 p.m. when the inactives came out, and it's like you look and you see DeMar Hamlin and Taylor Rapp. I'm like, well, fucking great. 3 backups against the Detroit Lions in Detroit. This shit ain't going to go well, which in large part it didn't. But again, they made those stops. The defensive line, I thought, helped mask some of that anyway. I thought the defensive line was pretty good. Drew got a sack. He played well. Dewan Smoot returned from IR, and I liked what I saw from him, especially watching the game back. He did some good things. Again, not all rosy with the defense. They needed, especially in the fourth quarter, I know they were kind of like in a prevent defense, but you need to make Detroit work a lot more for those 3 fourth quarter touchdowns that they got. Detroit went 70 yards 3 times in the fourth quarter, and all those drives were under 4 minutes. 2 of those 3 drives were under 3 minutes, which caused a lot more anxiety for Bills fans and media content creator than we all needed. But still, all in all things considered, I thought it was at the very least a respectable job by the defense, which is kind of wild to say when it's a defense that gave up 42 points. And the one guy I definitely need to single out specifically here, Ed Oliver. Man, Ed Oliver answered the bell. He did. And I want to mention him specifically because I've been very hard on him for a lot of the season. And in fairness, I think it's for good reason. I think your expectation of Ed Oliver should be a star player. He's not just another guy on his team. He's not supposed to be just another guy on his team. Ed Oliver is supposed to be an impactful star player. That's the reason why he was a top 10 pick. That's the reason why he got a big second contract, because the expectation and the flashes that he has shown is that he's an impactful player. But there's been too many games where he hasn't been. So I've been on him a lot and hard. And this past week, I think a lot of people joined that club. There's a lot of criticism over this last week about Ed Oliver. And he answered the bell because he was incredible in this game. Incredible. He had a sack. He had 10 pressures. 10. Wow. 10 pressures, 3 tackles. He drew a holding penalty. This was his best game of the season. This might have been one of the best games. Not might have. This was one of the best games of his entire career. I would go as far to say that after Josh Allen, Ed Oliver might have been the second best player on the field for the Buffalo Bills on Sunday. And man, oh man, I think you really, really need that. He's been kind of mad this season, but I'm hopeful because his 2 best games this year, to me, his clear-cut 2 best games have been against the Kansas City Chiefs and the Detroit Lions, 2 of the best teams in the NFL. The Bills, if they're going to get to a Super Bowl, if they're going to make a deep playoff run, this is the Ed Oliver you need to have in the playoffs. And this has not been the Ed Oliver that we have seen in the playoffs these last 2 years in elimination losses. He has been absent, silent, and irrelevant. This Ed Oliver that we saw against Detroit, this Ed Oliver that we saw a few weeks ago against Kansas City, that is the Ed Oliver that is going to make this entire defense better. And that is the Ed Oliver that the Bills are going to need to make a deep playoff run. He was absolutely sensational in Detroit against a very, very good Detroit offensive line. Starting to wonder about Matt Milano, folks. I'm starting to wonder a little bit about Matt Milano, the Dorian Williams thing. And I want to preface this again that I'm recording this before Sean McDermott speaks, so I don't have any insight to what the injury situation would be like. We'll talk about that. I got Matt Moran on the show tomorrow. I'm sure we'll have plenty about that. But both guys are dealing with injuries right now. Milano hurt his groin this game. Dorian Williams, his elbow. So maybe one of them, the injury is more significant than the other, and it kind of solves itself. But I'm wondering right now, if all things are equal and they're both available to play, if Dorian Williams not being on the field, I'm wondering if that's in the best interest of the Bills. I thought the good news for Matt Milano is I thought this was the best of his 3 games since being back. He had a fumble recovery, he had a few nice run stops, looked pretty decent in coverage. Speed looked relatively there. Like he didn't look slow. Couple bad plays, like he whipped really bad on the sideline once on a tackle. I kind of feel like one thing about him, and I can certainly understand why after the injury that he suffered and missing as much time as he did, seems a little hesitant to really stick that arm out in space. Like if he's falling and trying to stick that arm out to get somebody, I'm not sure that he's completely committed to that. That comes with time. That's not a criticism of him. I understand that. That's okay. But that said, I'm not sure if Matt Milano, what we saw from him on Sunday, is better than what Dorian Williams has been doing for the most part all season. And I thought Dorian Williams he played 20 snaps on Sunday, and I thought he looked good. I thought he had juice. He played in the 4-3 early in the game, and when Milano got hurt, well, actually, no, because Dorian got hurt first, and Dorian had to come back in the fourth quarter. More on that in a second. But anyway, Dorian Williams is athletic, and I think for at least right now, he's probably a better tackler than Matt Milano. And let's make no mistake about this, man. I am rooting for Matt Milano. Like, we know what Matt Milano's ceiling is. We've seen it before. It's sky high. It's rocket high. He's an impactful, game-altering type of linebacker when he's right. I get it. Dorian played, like I said, in 4-3 looks. He had to come back late in the game. It's interesting to see. The injury situation is going to be important because Matt Milano needs to get more reps over these next couple weeks. And if he's got to miss a game or even worse, 2 games, by the time he gets back, are you really going to take a chance of him getting ramped up and being in the playoffs and him being better? Like if he misses time with injury again, for me personally, I feel like it's definitely Dorian Williams the rest of the way. We'll see how that plays out. But even Matt Milano having the best of his 3 games, or 3 games into his return, I'm not sure that it's better than what I've seen from Dorian Williams. And if Matt's got to miss time, that concerns me. One last linebacker point, too. I'm still a big fan. I'm not trying to be controversial here, man. He's a very good player, but I'd be remiss after watching this game back, watching a little bit of film, if I didn't say there just feels like there's something a teeny weeny bit off right now about Terrell Bernard these past couple weeks since Matt Milano's return. I don't know if it's a coincidence or not. No idea. And that's not to say he's been bad. He hasn't been bad, but he hasn't been quite impactful as he was earlier in the season and especially last year. And I don't know. Maybe I'm reaching just a little bit on this take, but just something I feel like in his game just seems to be a tiny, tiny bit off. Couple quick hits here before I get out. Nitpicky, maybe unrealistic, expectations when talking about backup players, but boy, Balin Spector, he really stuck out like a sore thumb on Sunday. Terrible. Just a terrible return from him coming back from IR, and Detroit just attacked him immediately when he was on the field. He was so bad that Dorian Williams, who hurt his elbow early in the second quarter and had not seen a snap since, had to come back into the game later in the fourth quarter alongside Bernard in their nickel because Braylon Spector was so bad that Bobby Babich had to get him off the field. That's how bad he was. You wonder, was it a bad decision to bring Spector off IR? Was he ready to go? Or is this guy this is who he is? Is this who he is? At one point, I was screaming at the television, go to a dime. You got a 3-score lead, a 2-score lead. Go to a dime, put Ingram in there, have 7 DBs, and it's got to be better than what Balin Spector was doing out there. Or give Joe Andresen a shot. He was active for the game. And that's not me being a Buffalo homer. Yay, Buffalo Joe. Look, I don't give a shit who it is. Put the best players out there. If Matt Milano's better than Dorian Williams, put him out there. If Dorian Williams is better than Matt Milano, there's no sentimental stuff for me. I want the best players out there. So I'm not saying, hey, because he's the Buffalo guy, put him out there. I'm just saying, could Joe Andresen have played worse than what we saw from Balin Spector? Balin Spector ain't it. And that's not to mention, he gets hurt just way too much. So even if he's playing relatively well, you can't count on him because he never stays in the lineup. Little baffling to me what's going on with that. Also, I can't believe I'm saying this, but Damar Hamlin was really missing this football game. And you realize, if nothing else, I mean, he's better than Cam Lewis in that spot. Let's just agree. We'll all agree on that. Damar Hamlin, when healthy, hopefully he will be healthy soon. He's going to be that guy for the rest of the season. It ain't going to be Micah Hyde. It's not going to be Micah Hyde. I don't know that Micah Hyde could get ramped up in time. Maybe if there's another injury to Damar 3 weeks down the road in his playoffs, you go to Micah Hyde. But Damar's the guy for the rest of the season. He'll be a free agent after this year. We'll see how it plays out. But yeah, just nothing against Cam. Cam's a gamer, and he does some things well. He's very versatile. But in terms of, who's a better safety, it's clearly Damar Hamlin. Cole Bishop got cooked once on a play that it didn't count anyway. Jameson Williams dropped the ball, but he got cooked on that play. But that aside, I thought Cole Bishop was way better this game than he was against Houston. He ain't Taylor Rapp good, though. Taylor Rapp's still significantly better at this point. You wonder down the road, because Cole Bishop basically played Rapp's position in this game, if it was, say, Rapp's healthy and DeMar gets hurt, do you trust Bishop enough to play at free safety? Pretty interesting. But anyway, relatively promising game from him. Considering how, the opponent, how many times Jared Goff threw the ball, I thought Kyrie Elam was fine. He was fine in place of Rasul Douglas. He may have to be fine for a couple more weeks because I wouldn't be surprised if the Bills take their sweet time, as they should, considering who their opponents are, especially getting Rasul Douglas back on the field. I'm not liking what I'm seeing from the rookie, Dwayne Carter, since he came back from IR a couple weeks ago. And with veteran options like Quentin Jefferson, it may be time to redshirt Dwayne Carter for the rest of this season, make him an inactive. Pick back up with him in 2025. He's a third-round pick. He showed flashes early. He's a good talent. I feel pretty good about him in his future. But right now, I don't think Dwayne Carter is going to give you more than Quentin Jefferson or Jordan Phillips does at defensive tackle. So I'm definitely considering redshirting him, so to speak. I want to give some props to, specifically Dawson Knox. He's in my notes here. That was a big catch in the fourth quarter. That 2nd and 8, Josh Allen rollout. Dawson's wide open. Josh overthrows him. and Dawson makes a gorgeous fingertip catch. And you go back and you look at the game, that catch ended up taking well over 4 minutes of game clock off, and the Bills kicked the field goal. If he doesn't come down with that, it's 3rd and 8. There's still 6:50 left in the football game. And if the Bills don't convert, they were only up 10. Detroit gets the ball. The Bills defense, the way they were playing in the second half, they couldn't get a stop. You're talking a 3-point or a 7-point lead, and it's a 1-score game down the stretch. But Dawson Knox, a huge catch, man. He has been, especially since Dalton Kincaid got hurt, he's been really, really good. So good to see from Dawson Knox. A Tyler Bass missed chip shot. That sucked. 50-yarder sort of redemption, but I'm still horrified now. I really am. Because this guy may miss a kick late in a game where he doesn't get a shot at the feel-good redemption. I think the Bills are stuck with him this year. He's not going anywhere, but I'd be willing to bet you in December of 2024 that the Bills will have a new kicker come 2025. That aside, it's nice to see special teams not kill the Bills for once. Bass did make a 50-yarder. Matt Collins picked up an onside kick attempt and nearly returned it for a touchdown. Went all the way down 38 yards to the 5-yard line. Sam Martin, he boomed a 51-yard punt inside the 5-yard line. In fact, that was one of the better Bills drives of the game, actually, because they completely flipped the field. They started from their own 8. They didn't score, but they punted, and then Detroit got the ball inside their own 5. So they literally flipped the field there. Kincaid and Coleman, it's funny. It seems so many talking points here. 2 offensive stars returned from injury, and I'm at the very end of the show before I'm really even mentioning them. Coleman just 1 catch, but it was a big one, 64-yarder down the field. Dalton Kincaid, 4 catches, 53 yards. Should have had a touchdown, too. And then he had a 1 catch, awesome double finger point at 2 Lions defenders. That was some good quality shit talking there. So all in all, like I said, a very impressive signature victory over the Detroit Lions. The Bills right now are in excellent shape to be no worse than the 2. And depending on how the next couple of games go with the Chiefs, and the 1 seed is certainly not out of play. I'm reading reports that Patrick Mahomes has been diagnosed with a high ankle sprain. The Chiefs play Houston, then they play Pittsburgh. Short week. Anything can happen, folks. The Bills could be, and then they finish off against Denver. Denver might not have nothing to play for in week 18, though. So you're really hoping that the Chiefs could lose these next 2. The Bills, of course, they got New England twice with the Jets at home sandwich between them. A great opportunity for the Bills to go 14-3. All in all, a great week, a fun week. Tomorrow's show, I'm going to be back. Matt Warren from SB Nation is going to join me sooner or later throughout this week. We're going to have at least one Sabres-centric episode because I got a lot to say about that shitty-ass team and their 10-game losing streak. Terry Bagula supposedly is in Montreal right now with the team. We'll see if anything comes of that. But anyway, thank you very much for watching, for listening. If you have not subscribed, please go ahead and do so. And I'll be back. Brand new episode. Matt Warren joins me tomorrow.